My name's Julian, and the envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Thick, cream-colored paper, the kind that feels expensive, with a weight that promises something formal. A wedding invitation, maybe. A birth announcement. It was addressed only to me, in a handwriting I hadn't seen in years, but I'd know it anywhere. My brother's, Marco. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since the divorce was finalized. Not since he'd stood in my kitchen helping me pack up the last of her things, the scented candles, the art books, the pair of rain boots she'd left by the door, and said, "You'll both be happier apart, Jay. Trust me." He was right, but he was also wrong in ways I wouldn't understand until that Tuesday. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on my counter next to the fruit bowl for 2 days. It became a part of the landscape. I'd make coffee and see it. I'd come home from work and see it. A little white monument to a past I'd carefully boxed up and stored away. My ex-wife, Chloe, was part of that past. My twin brother, Marco, he was supposed to be the constant, the other half of the equation. We weren't just brothers, we were mirrors. Born 7 minutes apart, we spent our childhoods finishing each other's sentences, sharing a secret language of looks across dinner tables. He was the outgoing one, the charmer. I was the quiet one, the observer. But the foundation felt the same, or so I thought. On the third day, the rain started, that persistent gray drizzle that turns the world into a watercolor. I poured a whiskey, sat at the counter, and finally slid my thumb under the flap. The paper gave way with a soft, expensive tear. It wasn't a wedding invitation. It was a christening announcement. With joyful hearts, Marco and Chloe Rossi request the honor of your presence at the baptism of their son, Daniel Arthur Rossi. The words blurred. The room, my quiet, safe apartment, seemed to tilt on its axis. Marco and Chloe Rossi. Their son, Daniel Arthur Rossi. Daniel, after our father. Arthur, our father's name. The date was for the following Sunday, 3 days from then. I read it again, and a third time, looking for a clue, a punchline, some sign this was a monstrous joke, but the paper was real. The embossed script was real. The smiling, generic watermark of a cherub was disgustingly real. Marco and Chloe, married, with a son. A son, named after our dead father. And they were inviting me to the christening?
The first sound that left my mouth wasn't a cry or a shout. It was a laugh. A short, sharp, brittle thing that cracked in the silent air and then died. It was the sound of absolute, profound understanding finally arriving 3 years too late. I'd always known, on some cellular level, that my brother and I loved the same things. The same movies, the same obscure indie band from college, the same brand of peanut butter. We had the same laugh, the same stubborn cowlick at the crown of our head. I just never applied that logic to people, to Chloe. To understand this, you have to understand our symmetry, Marco and I, and you have to understand Chloe. I met Chloe at an art gallery opening. I was there reluctantly, dragged by a friend. She was standing in front of a chaotic splatter painting, a small frown of concentration on her face. "It looks like the artist had a fight with the canvas and lost," I said without thinking. She turned, and her frown dissolved into a laugh that seemed to light up the sterile room. "I was thinking it looks like a map of a city where all the roads lead to a migraine," she said. That was it. We talked for 2 hours. She was sharp, wickedly funny, with a quiet intensity that felt like a challenge. I'd never met anyone who listened the way she did, like she was trying to decode the spaces between your words. When I brought her to meet my family, Marco was, of course, there, the life of the party. He charmed her instantly, making her laugh with stories of my embarrassing childhood exploits. I remember feeling a twin pang of pride and something else, a flicker of possessiveness. But I shrugged it off. That was just Marco. He charmed everyone. Our father, Arthur, adored Chloe. He'd pull her aside at family dinners and show her his rose garden, pointing out each hybrid with the care of a museum curator. He was a quiet, gentle man, a landscape architect who spoke more to plants than people. "She's got a steady hand, your girl," he told me once, watching her deadhead a spent bloom. "She understands things need time to grow." He died of a sudden heart attack 6 months before the wedding. We buried him under his favorite oak tree. The grief was a silent earthquake in our family. Marco and I stopped being mirrors for a while. We became black holes, each absorbing the loss in our own way. I retreated. Marco became louder. Chloe and I got married in his garden. It felt right. Marco was my best man. His speech was perfect. Funny, heartfelt, just the right amount of ribbing. He hugged Chloe after, a long, tight hug. "You take care of my brother," he whispered, but I was close enough to hear it. I saw her nod against his shoulder, her eyes closed.
The marriage, it wasn't a catastrophe. There was no screaming, no infidelity that I knew of. It was a slow leak, a quiet, mutual drifting into different rooms, both physically and emotionally. I buried myself in work, building my own architecture firm. Chloe, a graphic designer, took on more freelance projects. We became polite roommates who shared a bed. The passion, the intense connection from the gallery got filed away under memory. The fights, when they came, were about silence. "You're a million miles away, Julian," she'd say, her voice flat. "I'm right here," I'd argue, but she was right. I was building structures, designing spaces for other people to live in, and forgetting to inhabit my own. Marco was a constant presence, the mediator. He'd take me for beers. "You gotta talk to her, man. Don't let it go cold." He'd check in on Chloe, too, he told me. "Just making sure she's okay. You're both my family." The night I finally said, "I don't think this is working anymore," Chloe just nodded. She looked relieved and sad and tired. "I know," she said. There were no tears, just a profound, exhausting acceptance. Marco helped us through the uncoupling. He was the rock. He helped me find my apartment. He helped Chloe move her things into a temporary rental. He was the Switzerland in our personal, quiet war. I was grateful. So grateful. The last time I saw them together was at the final signing at the lawyer's office. It was late afternoon, winter light bleeding through the blinds. As we stood to leave, Chloe hesitated, then hugged me. It was brief, stiff. "Be well, Julian," she said. Over her shoulder, I caught Marco's eye. He gave me a small, sad smile and a thumbs up. "You'll be okay," the gesture said. After that, Chloe and I did what modern, civilized exes do. We vanished from each other's lives. No contact. Clean break. Marco and I, we stayed in touch, but it thinned. Calls became texts. Texts became occasional likes on social media. He traveled a lot for his consulting job. I was drowning in a new project. We blamed time, distance, the usual suspects. I missed him, but I told myself this was just adulthood. Twins grow apart. It's natural. I was a fool. Sitting there with the invitation, the whiskey untouched, the pieces began to snap together with a terrible magnetic clarity. Marco's constant presence during the marriage, his checking in on Chloe, the long hugs,
The way he'd always remember her favorite wine, her opinion on a film I'd forgotten we'd seen. He wasn't being a good brother. He was studying. He was waiting. And Chloe? Her relief at the end? Was it just freedom from a dying marriage? Or was it freedom to finally be with the other brother, the louder one, the one who was always present, who filled silences instead of retreating into them?
The date on the christening invitation, I did the math, my fingers trembling as I counted back months on my phone's calendar. The baby was born roughly 8 months ago, which meant conception would have been about 17 months ago. A year and a half ago, 5 months before our divorce was even finalized. The laugh came again, harder this time, bordering on hysterical. They'd been together. They'd been having a child while I was signing papers, while I was grieving the end of my marriage, while I was leaning on my brother for support. He was holding my wife, his wife. And they named him Daniel Arthur, after our father. That was the knife. That was the deliberate, calculated twist. Our father who loved Chloe, our father who valued loyalty and quiet strength above all else. They'd taken his name, a sacred relic in our family, and sewn it onto their secret. It was a claim, a declaration. They weren't just a couple, they were the rightful continuation of our family line. I was the failed branch, they were the new fertile trunk. I didn't sleep that night. I paced, I stared at the announcement, I drank the whiskey and then poured another. I thought about calling Marco. I thought about driving to his place, our old family home he'd bought from our mom when she downsized. I thought about screaming, breaking things. But a colder, quieter part of me took over by dawn, the part that was my father's son, the observer, the architect. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about violence or confrontation. It was about correction. It was about revealing the flawed structure beneath the beautiful facade. I would go to the christening. I hired a discreet investigator. It took him 48 hours to confirm what I already knew. Flight records showing Marco and Chloe taking separate trips to the same Caribbean island a year and a half ago. A prenuptial agreement filed 2 months before my divorce was final. A marriage license issued in another county dated 3 weeks after the divorce. A secret wedding, a secret pregnancy, a secret life, built in the shadow of mine. The investigator also gave me Chloe's parents' address. They'd always liked me. They'd been confused and sad about the divorce.
The day before the christening, I drove to their house. Her mother, Evelyn, answered the door. Her face, usually warm, froze in a mask of shock and pity. "Julian," she breathed. "Oh, Julian." They knew. Of course they knew. They'd known for a while. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I sat in their sunroom, the same room where Chloe and I had told them we were engaged, and I asked, simply, "When did you know?" Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "After you separated. Marco started coming around. He was so supportive. It felt natural. Then it wasn't." She looked at her husband, who stared at his hands. "They told us they were in love after the divorce was done. They asked us to keep it quiet, to give you space. We thought we were being kind." "The baby was conceived before the divorce was final," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. Evelyn went pale. "No, they said—" "They lied. To you too." I left them with that, a small, contained detonation in their sunroom. Let them sit with the complicity of their silence. The christening was at St. Michael's, the same church where Chloe and I had taken our marriage vows. The irony was so thick it felt like a physical presence, a fog I had to push through. I wore a simple, dark suit. I arrived exactly on time. The small chapel was full of their friends, our old shared friends, family. A hush fell as I walked down the aisle.
I felt every eye on me, a mixture of horror, curiosity, and profound awkwardness. I saw my mother in the front row. She saw me and her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a panic that told me she'd known too. She'd known and said nothing. Marco and Chloe were standing at the front, near the font. Chloe was holding a bundle of white lace, Daniel. Marco had his arm around her. They looked radiant, a perfect, beautiful, holy family unit. They turned as I approached. Chloe's smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. Marco's face went through a rapid series of adjustments. Shock, guilt, then a forced, brittle warmth. "Julian," he said, his voice too loud for the chapel. "You came." He stepped forward, as if to hug me. I didn't move. I just looked at him, my mirror, and saw the stranger he'd always been underneath. "Julian," I said, my voice carrying in the quiet. "Marco? Chloe?" I nodded at the baby. "Daniel? Arthur? Beautiful name."
The priest, uncomfortable, cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" "In a moment, Father," I said, still looking at my brother. I reached into my inner suit pocket. I didn't pull out a gift. I pulled out 2 envelopes. I handed the first one to Marco. "A christening gift," I said. He took it, confused. It was a simple, legal-sized envelope. He opened it, his eyes scanning the single page inside. It was a copy of the investigator's summary, highlighting the dates, the conception window, the prenuptial filing date, the secret marriage license, the flight manifests. His face drained of all color. The paper trembled in his hand. "And this," I said, turning to Chloe, "is for you." I handed her the second envelope. Inside was a photograph, printed on heavy stock. It was a picture of our father, Arthur, in his garden, smiling at the camera. On the back, I had written in clear, architect's block letters, he believed in loyalty. He believed in growth. I hope you explained to his grandson what those words actually mean. Chloe looked at the photograph, then at me. A single tear traced down her cheek. Not of remorse, I think, but of shattered image. The story they'd built, of a love that bloomed honorably after a sad ending, was crumbling in front of their entire world. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I had simply presented the evidence, the corrected blueprint. I looked at my mother. She was crying silently. I gave her a small, sad nod. Then I turned and walked back up the aisle. The silence behind me absolute, broken only by the soft, gurgling cry of the baby, my brother's son, my ex-wife's son, my father's namesake. I didn't go home. I drove to my father's grave. I sat under his oak tree, the damp earth seeping through my suit pants, and I finally let myself cry. For him. For the brother I thought I had. For the marriage that had died. For the sheer, breathtaking betrayal. The fallout was quiet, but total. My phone blew up, of course. Texts from mutual friends, awkward, trying to parse loyalties. I didn't respond. Marco tried to call once. I sent it to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. My mother came to see me a week later. She was a wreck. She said, "I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. I thought they'd tell you in their own time. I thought it would hurt less." I told her I needed time. A lot of it. She's respecting that.
I heard through the fragile grapevine that the christening party was a disaster, that people left early, that Chloe's parents were furious, that the perfect facade had cracked, revealing the rot they'd built it on. That was 6 months ago. I didn't seek legal action. What for? I didn't want their money. I didn't want to punish them through a court. Their punishment is their life. Their punishment is the knowing looks they'll get from family forever.
Their punishment is the story of their son's birth, a story they can never tell honestly. Their punishment is each other and the secret that built them. My revenge wasn't in exposing them to the world. The world forgets. My revenge was in exposing them to themselves, in holding up a mirror so clear, so merciless, that they could never again pretend they were the heroes of this story. I still grieve for my brother, the one I had, the one who existed before Chloe. That man is gone. Maybe he never existed at all. As for Chloe, I feel nothing. And that's the most surprising thing. The love, the hurt, the betrayal, it's all been burned away, leaving behind a clean, empty plot. I can build something new there. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that little boy, Daniel Arthur, an innocent in all this. He'll grow up with his parents' secret as his foundation. I wonder what he'll believe. I wonder if, one day, he'll come looking for his Uncle Julian, wanting to know the other side of the story. And if he does, I'll tell him. I'll tell him about his grandfather, a good man who loved quietly and deeply. I'll tell him that sometimes people who look like mirrors are actually windows into their own desires. And I'll tell him that the strongest structures aren't built on hidden faults, but on bedrock truth, no matter how hard it is to excavate. My silence now isn't a wound, it's a boundary. It's the wide, clean space I've built around my life. They sent me an invitation to their new beginning, thinking it was a final nail in my coffin. They didn't realize they were handing me the blueprint for my freedom. And in the end, the sweetest revenge isn't burning down their house. It's living, truly living, in the well-built home you made for yourself, and leaving them to haunt the halls of their own hidden rooms.